Hi, everybody. I am so incredibly excited and so incredibly honored to be joined today with who was the man who was my first ever pro athlete client. He is someone who I've known for a very long time. He's a dear friend of mine, and honestly, you're just a blessing in my life, Shane O'Neill. Shane, I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate you being a part of this, and I appreciate everything that we've done together. You went straight from high school actually right into playing professional soccer. Like, what was, when you're that young, like, how does that how does that affect you? How does that impact you? What was that process like?
I mean, I feel like it happens so fast that you don't really, you don't have a lot of time, I think, to process it and to think about it. You're so young that um, obviously, it's one of those things that I think that's where mentorship and being a good leader and being a good teammate is so important because obviously, having walked in those shoes now, when you are 18 years old, there's so much that you need to learn, not only professionally, but personal life wise. Obviously, you need to grow into a man. But obviously, with the profession as well, it's so important that you have a little bit of guidance. So, I mean, obviously, it was a huge challenge, massive challenge. And you looking back, I mean, honestly, it takes a lot of luck. I feel like you need a coach who believes in you. You need um, to get opportunities at the right time. You stay healthy. Obviously, those things sort of happened for me early in my career, and that was massive. I had a coach who really believed in me, but he wasn't easy on me. He was really stringent at times when he needed to be strict, kind of like a father figure, really, exactly what I needed. And it was really helpful for me. But looking back, I mean, you're just so young. You're just kind of immersed in it, but you're not really thinking too much about the long term. And like I said, looking back, that's where being a good leader and a good teammate is really vital to help those young kids out.
Going into being a professional soccer player, what were some of the challenges that you faced being a young pro athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot. I think number one, it's funny as you get older, you get so much more aware of the things that are going to help you succeed. Diet, taking care of your body off the field, extra work, the right exercises in the gym, taking care of your mental health, taking care of your mindset on the pitch. These are all things that you pick up along the way. So I think a big challenge is, I mean, looking back, like I didn't eat good. I didn't take care of my body. I sort of didn't take care of my sleep. I was just being a kid. I was being an 18-year-old kid, as you think you would. And so obviously you got to learn fast. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. So I think that's a big challenge, I think. And again, that's where it goes back to like you need good guidance. I also think it's hard sometimes. I mean, this is maybe a little bit unique to my situation, but it's becoming a lot more prevalent nowadays. But as an 18-year-old, you kind of have to sacrifice a ton. You have to sacrifice, a ton of your social life. You have to sacrifice going to college, kind of expanding your friend group in a lot of ways, and you have to sacrifice a ton of time as well. You can't go out on the weekend and meet your friends because you have practice and you have a game, and you got to take care. You got to try and take care of yourself best you can. So I think that's one thing that people don't see. That's pretty tough, I think, for a
Yeah.
young athlete to kind of get to come to grips with.
What was that transition like? You go overseas, what starts happening? What new things start presenting themselves?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that first year was probably the biggest challenge in my career without a doubt. Obviously, I got transferred to a club over in Belgium, and I remember it was so funny because I remember, so obviously you have the first team, the first 11, and then if you don't start in that game, you have to play on a Tuesday. So the big game you want to play on is a Saturday. If you don't play on Saturday, you got to play in a reserve game on a Tuesday. And so I get into the team, and just, obviously I'm in the French speaking part of Belgium. From a personal life standpoint, that's where the biggest challenge was, because I think when I was in Colorado, whether it was ups or downs, I had a full support system around me, whether it be, old friends or, whatever, my family, blah, blah, blah. I had a ton of support in that area. And then I go up and I go to Europe, and it's like you don't have that. It's completely gone. You're kind of in the trenches by yourself, and you got to find a way to hack it out. And I remember we were playing a reserve game on a Tuesday, and we were playing against this guy who was really, really good. And a guy comes up to me after and was like, yeah, that guy, he used to play for like the best team in Turkey. And I remember that just hitting me for some reason, being like, damn, here I am on a Tuesday night in Belgium playing against a guy who used to play for the best team in Turkey, and just how global the game is, and how you have guys who are like, who used to be the guy, and we're here on a Tuesday night in front of 0 fans, grinding it out, trying to make it happen. And it just kind of opened my eyes to, like, if you want to be in this game, it's not like you said, it's not like the NFL or the NBA, where obviously the standard is exceedingly high, but you really are kind of competing with one, maybe 2, 3 countries. Whereas in soccer, you got the whole world who's trying to find spots, and all people from all over the place. And so that really opened my eyes to that. And so, I mean, obviously it was a huge challenge being over there. It was a huge challenge kind of finding myself as a person while also trying to perform. And I think that was the biggest takeaway, is you got to be in a good spot off the field to be able to bring your best onto the field. Mm. And I think in Belgium, I didn't do a very good job of that. I was young. It was really challenging, but it was a great learning lesson.
How's that process for you as you come back to the States, going from playing in Europe to playing for Orlando? Like, what's that transition like? What's different? What's the same? What are the things that are going through your mind as you're playing there?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I'd say about Europe is, obviously there were some good times too that taught me a lot about leadership, and taught me a lot about, just like you said, it really taught me so much about myself. So I have, there was good moments that I can take away from that experience. But I think at the end of the day, I knew that after my 3rd year over there, coming back to the U.S. from a personal life standpoint would serve me the best. I knew a couple of people down in Orlando on the team, and I figured that would be a really good situation to kind of level me out personal life wise, and be able to have a little bit more stability, because obviously in Europe I was on 3 different teams in the 3 years that I was there. So coming back to Orlando, I feel like I was a lot more seasoned, a lot more of a better professional, a better person. I think I kind of had a better perspective on my career. And honestly, like, I look back at my time in Orlando, and the first 6 months, we weren't very successful as a team, but I felt I had some good moments. And it was really interesting because that off season, after 6 months, I felt I had kind of accumulated myself into this person that was really ready to capitalize on a big season. I felt really ready to execute and have a sort of career year that I sort of always felt that I could have. And that was just the funny thing about 2019 is, I went into the year kind of thinking I'm going to be this leader. I'm going to be this person who's going to compete at the highest level in MLS. And, unfortunately, I just made a few mistakes, a few errors. I didn't perform to the level that I was expecting to. And that was extremely humbling, and it taught me a lot about just expectations and sort of concentration, focus, believing in yourself at an elite level, not at that kind of, like you said, that survival level. If you want to be like elite, you can't have that sort of survival mentality. If I just want to stay in the team, I hope the coach doesn't, see that bad pass I made in practice. It's got to be like complete self-belief and trust in yourself. And I think that's what 2019 taught me, that it just wasn't at that level that I needed to be at. And I think that's probably why we're sitting here having this conversation, because towards the end of that year, obviously you reached out to me, and it was actually perfect timing, because it was exactly what I needed to sort of reinvent my mental side of the game. And obviously that translated, I think all that work, all that physical work that I had done 2018, 2019, coupled with the mental work at the end of 2019, obviously allowed me to have the sort of year that I always thought I could have this season, accumulating into getting to the MLS Cup. So
what I ask, I mean, I shoot you a text and I say, hey, are you free for a phone call? And you say, yeah, shoot me, that's totally fine. Shoot me a call. And so I start talking to you, and my question was around, as a pro athlete, do you know if athletes have access to like mental performance coaching, like, figuring out how they can balance the game mentally as much as they do physically? And roughly the answer that you give me back to that is like, no, we don't really have that much access to any of that kind of stuff. And the guys that do, they're not necessarily going to do it with the team. We start the work essentially as you're finishing up your season with Orlando. And by that point, you essentially become a bit of a free agent. Like as you're entering free agency, we start having some conversations about, so what does the next step look like? And we get on this hot topic of, you want to stay in the States. Things aren't perfect with you and your agent. And we started making some, I'll call them executive decisions, but I'd like to hear from you, like during that early part of us working together, what some of that work was for you, like how you started to work through that stuff, what some of those big decisions were, and what were the things that were most helpful during that time? Because there was a lot of stuff in the air.
yeah, I mean, I think I know this is going to sound almost super bare bones, but it's funny that like when you're watching a game, or you're watching an NFL game or NBA or obviously soccer, whatever, the athlete is going through a full range of emotions on that field, whether or not they look like they are, whether or not they look like it or not. You're feeling everything from fear, anxiety, whatever. And you obviously got a lot of eyes on you. You're thinking about, oh, geez, did they see that? All this stuff. There's all this noise that's going on. And I think for me, one thing I wasn't doing a very good job of was focusing on the task at hand. And I think that's for me, when I look back, probably one of the biggest benefits of working together. Obviously, we kind of labeled it the fast lane, where you got fear, anxiety, stress, tension. I mean, that's I always kind of think back on that term because I think it's so true. I mean, as an athlete, you make a mistake, and the first thing is like, I mean, I don't want to curse on this podcast, so it's, explicitives are going through your mind, but that takes you away from the next moment. And then that can cause, so a lot of times when you see an athlete, they'll make two mistakes right in a row. You'll make one and then you'll follow it up with another one because you were just thinking about the last one. And for me, I had a bad habit of doing that. And you got to make sure that no matter what happens in the game, you're bringing it back to the present moment, and not just bringing it back to the present moment. You're bringing your best back to the present moment. You're coming at it with relentless kind of belief in yourself, because the hardest thing is when you do make a mistake or something happens that doesn't go your way, it can suck life out of you. It can take a little bit of energy away from you. It can take that focus. It can take that determination, that self-belief. And it's super, super important to leave all that at the door. Regardless of what just happened, you got to take the best into the next play. So for me, I think addressing that was number one, because one of my biggest flaws was just not living that, not really executing at the highest of my ability, play in, play out. Sort of, I was allowing the fast lane to sort of affect me, trickle through the game, allowing things that happened within the game to affect me 20 minutes later, that sort of stuff. Because as an athlete, I know I'm rambling here, but as an athlete, you got to play on the front foot at all times. Like you can't have anything hindering you on the field. You have to just allow your body to kind of take action. You can't really think a lot of times. Obviously, you got to think tactically and where's this guy going and all that kind of stuff. But in the moments where action is required, you got to just go. You can't really think twice, because those hesitations, those split seconds, those are the moments. Those are literally the moments that cost you or make you a hero or whatever. Like, it's those split second bang bang moments. So for me, kind of cleaning that up for myself was massive. And then the other thing I think which was maybe a little bit of life, but also soccer is like, and kind of getting into what you were just mentioning there is just taking ownership. I think it's really important when I look back on my career and just look back on everything. Like you got to take a lot of ownership for your career, because a lot of times athletes, they can kind of be like, okay, um, I have a little injury, so I'm going to allow whatever I'm just going to push it off and like let them deal with it, and they'll tell me what to do instead of doing the research and like what's going on, like how can I get better at, or oh, this is what I've just been told will help me, or whatever it is. This is the best contract I can get, without, again, taking ownership of these situations and kind of taking it into your own hands and sort of trying to find out for yourself as well what can be the best. And so obviously towards the beginning of November, I realized I was having a lot of trouble with my agent. And that's kind of when we had those conversations. I think it was January 1st, maybe January 2nd, one of those dates when it was kind of like, I think it's time to take some ownership on my own career and reach out to teams myself, and not, I don't need an agent. Why do I need an agent? I've been in the league since 2012. Obviously people know who I am. So obviously I think that was honestly one of the biggest steps I took in terms of backing myself and reaching out to the teams and getting the opportunity with Seattle sort of on my own accord. And it's funny how when I talk to people now about it, so many other people want to do that. And
like during that off season, preseason area time like that, you get the contract signed and you're now prepping for preseason. Like, what's that process like for you? What are you focused on? And what are the things that are really driving you during that time?
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously at that time, it's all about just day in, day out, trying to put in as much of an effort as possible. It's first impressions or lasting impressions, especially in soccer. I feel like you can really open the eyes of people. But, I think one thing that was really important about that time period was, talking about, you're not going to, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's really important to, I think one thing for athletics that's super, super important is you got to play the long game. If you want to be successful, you got to really, there's going to be ups and downs every single day. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be tough days. But during that preseason, this preseason, when I look back, there were some days where I was like, damn, I wasn't good enough today.
Yeah.
But it was over the 2 months that I kind of just built more trust in myself. And it comes from when the mindset is sort of more of a, I don't want to be like cliche, but you got to have the growth mindset of, I'm building something here, as opposed to like, I had a terrible day. This is like, I'm done. Like this, I'm going to get bent off. I'm not going to play, as opposed to, okay, that was not a great day. Let's go back. Let's watch the film. How can we improve? Let's get better. And then it just kind of built from there. And that was my mindset this preseason. It was really trying, let's build something. Because this is, like you said, I'm joining the defending champions. This isn't supposed to be easy. I wanted to join this club because I wanted a challenge. I wanted to see if I could, play at that level. So I think that obviously was my mindset then. And that kind of took me into the start of the season, where I started the first couple of games before the lockdown, which was massive for my confidence, and it sort of kickstarted my year with them.
What would you tell someone who's in that headspace of, hey, I'm here to just like, I need to get this paycheck, or I'm trying to fight for this next paycheck, and like, what advice would you give them to help them shift from feeling like they're in a position of, I'm just trying to survive another day, to helping them let go of some of that by focusing on something more powerful?
Well, I mean, honestly, like for a long time in my career, I feel like, and I mean, it still happens. And I think it's probably because as an athlete, you get a short amount of time to get everything you want to achieve in sort of your life. You have this like 15-year, if you're super lucky, you have like a 15-year, sometimes you have 5, sometimes you have 10 years if you're lucky. to achieve all these dreams and goals, and along the way your dreams are getting crushed. Like, oh, I want to play in the Premier League. Okay, I'm not actually going to play in the Premier League, and you kind of have to keep reassessing. And so you honestly, there's been times where soccer can make you miserable. It's something you think about all day, every day. Oh, that practice wasn't great, and oh, that game and all that stuff. And I mean, I think for me now, it's just like I said earlier, I think I perform at my best when I feel like I'm going onto the field at complete peace with myself, and I can really allow myself to kind of take the shackles off when the moment needs to be. And for me, I think it's just like looking back now. Obviously, next year will be my 10th year, and it's like it goes by so fast that when I look back, it's like it's not worth kind of tapping into that other mindset. Like the beauty is when you can kind of see the long game, and for me, it's much more now about how I do the things on a daily basis, how I played in the game from internally, rather than like what the actual results are. How did I show up in that game? Am I happy with the way I showed up? Because if I'm happy with the way I showed up, and this guy who's one of the best forwards in the league beats me and scores, like that's gonna happen, because that's what's meant to happen if this guy is one of the top players in the league. And that maybe I'll win 9 out of 10, but sometimes that just happens. So for me, it's much more about, can I show up the way I want to show up on a daily basis? And so how do I want to show up? That's kind of where I have to ask myself. And for me, it's about showing up with 100% mentality, 100% work ethic, trying to connect with people, like you said, and just, leaving it all out there every single day. And that's much more important to me now than whether or not, I hit 10 perfect diagonal passes and all this other kind of stuff, because I know if I take care of the first part, 99% of the time, the second part will take care of itself.
You're setting these awesome goals, especially as you're going into the postseason. We started to connect before every single postseason game, and had little moments back and forth, whether it was creating little goals or just quick mindset shifts and things like that, which, the messages that you were sending me before your games, just telling me legitimately where you're at mentally. Like, I feel good. I feel locked in. I'm repeating this stuff to myself. It was awesome. It was awesome because you were so dialed in. And you're a defensive player, and you get your first postseason goal, and it just so happens to be a game-winning goal. Like, the clutch gene is not even a good way to describe like that moment for you. I think a better way, at least in my world, is you put yourself in a position mentally to have success naturally find you, where when you're playing free, you're playing without hesitation, you're just being you. And when an opportunity presents itself, you went after it. Like, I got to get your reaction about how that process went.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like when you get into the playoffs, obviously the pressure is at the height, and for me, it was as the pressure kind of built and there was more noise, I feel like it was about trying to simplify every game, and that's why I think those texts maybe have one or two things to really focus on each and every game, and just sort of allow yourself, because I think the biggest opponent of an athlete, especially at that level, is yourself. That's the key. You got to get past yourself. You got to be able to allow yourself to perform at your best. And for me to have those little things to focus on in the big games was super, super key. And obviously, like when you talk about the MLS Cup, MLS semifinals, all that, it's always a grain of rice is going to tip the scale, and like you got to be dialed in on all the little things. And so for myself, it was just about having those little details I need to focus on, whether it be something in the first half, something in the second half, a little word, starting fast, finishing faster, always on the front foot, just something to kind of keep myself in the moment, but also you gotta allow yourself to be unconscious in those games because there's so much at stake. There's so much pressure that if you start to kind of think about that, you're not going to be focusing on the task at hand. Because at the end of the day, it's just a game. It is just a game. It's just like there just feels like there's more at stake, and so just continuing to do the kind of the right things. So I feel like I did a pretty good job of that. Obviously, the final was a huge disappointment, but that was more to, I would say, tipping the hat to Columbus than anything else. So it was a journey without a doubt. And, but, as I said at the start of this, like it starts all over again as an athlete. It's not like you look back on that and be like, oh, that was great, amazing. It's like, nah, I haven't really thought about it that much. It's just kind of like, how can I get better? How can I get better from here? And let's get prepared for next year. Let's get the body and mind right for next year.
So the last question I have for you is really this journey that you've been on, where you went from playing in the US, playing overseas, facing challenges, coming back to the States. Like you've learned all these things along the way. And one of the things that we talked about in September of 2019 was that for you, you really wanted to start focusing and mastering the mental side of the game. We're sitting here in January of 2021, and I'd love to hear from your perspective, one, how that mindset journey has been, what's been really helpful to you, and also what has it been like working with a coach for athletes who are considering it or have never heard of it, and are starting to think about mastering the mindset portion of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's avenues in which you can improve yourself. There's many avenues, and I think unfortunately one of the biggest ones is this avenue. One of the biggest avenues to improve yourself. Obviously, you got to put the work in. If you don't put the work in the gym, on the field, that's obviously it's never gonna happen for you. But it's just as important to put the work in your mind and kind of get yourself dialed in, believing in yourself. Because if you don't, one thing that I always think about, it's so funny, is this game is just so relentless. I mean, and I'm sure every sport is the same, but there's, with soccer, there's always someone coming for your spot, or the coach doesn't pick you, or you have a bad game, or you have a bad practice, or you have an injury, or, there's so many things. It's so relentless. And if you're not dialed in on a daily basis and staying sort of that neutral and just continuously believing in yourself and continually backing yourself, it's going to eat you up, And I mean, I think obviously the work that we did really sort of set my path straight in a lot of ways. And I mean, obviously you gotta continuously work on it so much, but I think everyone's different, but everyone's going to have issues that they struggle with. For me, obviously, like I said, it was kind of I wouldn't just make one mistake. I'd make one, two, then three. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, damn, I've made so many mistakes now that it can't get any worse from here. So maybe now I should come back to the present moment and erasing that and kind of dialing into that present moment and believing in myself. And so I think obviously for anybody who's like looking to better themselves, I mean, that this is the avenue that is massive. And I think obviously working with you has been massive. I talking before the final, dialing in kind of some of the things. Obviously, the game didn't go our way, but you just gotta look at the details all the time and see how you can improve and see how you can better yourself. And I think it's really an avenue that athletes in general are really looking to try and improve themselves, because there's only so much you can do in the gym, especially after being a pro for 10 years. Your body's only going to be able to do so much, and at a certain point, you got to be able to. How can I improve the mental side? How can I improve? Because when I'm telling you, like when it gets to that level, the margins are so razor thin that it's all about like if you have the gumption or the belief or the backing of yourself to make that split-second decision to go for a ball that maybe you wouldn't have before, that can make all the difference.
Honestly, in just under 12 months, you went from no team, no agent to MLS Cup starter, right? Like that is, and after negotiating your own deal with them, you are you are an absolute monster when it comes to execution. And I think that's what makes athletes incredible as individuals is they're used to needing to execute at a very high level. And your dedication, not only to your own betterment, but also to the game that you play, it speaks volumes about the man that you are. And like from the bottom of my heart, like one, I don't think I could have asked for someone better to have been my first client to work with and to learn with and to, really just be a part of this journey with. I feel so blessed that I was able to just share a very small part of this journey that you've been on, because you're an outstanding individual. And one, like the at the end of the season, your mindset of just trusting the machine, you've put in all this work, and now you're in a position of it's time to trust everything that I've done, trust the process, trust the work that you've put in, and you built a well-oiled machine. And so that was kind of the calling card, was trust the machine. And I know you're just getting started. And I know that the work that we're going to do moving forward is going to be incredible to be a part of. I'm so excited for everything that's coming your way. And I mean, any athlete who's listening to this is going to get a ton of value from your experience and the work that you've done. And I mean, if they're not inspired or motivated by the stuff that you've done to just understand how much can happen in such a short time, then I hope they are now, because you are living proof of how quickly momentum can shift in your favor by just making, honestly, pretty small changes that make massive waves in your life. And all I can say is that I appreciate you. And this has just been an amazing journey with you so far. And I appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I appreciate you. And I think for any athlete, it's like you sort of get what you put in, and obviously working with somebody like you, I sort of got what I put into it. And I mean, I reap the rewards. And obviously, that's for one season. That's not, you know what I mean? I'm not sitting here on a high horse after, 10 years at the top. I mean, it's relentless. You got to just get back to the grind. But I wanted to improve my mental side of the game. And obviously, having worked with you, I certainly did that. So, I mean, what more can I say? I think the process and the journey kind of speaks to the improvement. I mean, I think the numbers, the statistics, the season, it speaks for itself, that, obviously working on my mental game with you, working on the mental side, it paid dividends this year. So obviously for any athlete out there listening, that's one hell of a way to improve yourself, is to believe in yourself and to trust yourself. And, sometimes it takes help to do that. It's not easy. It's a hard thing. It's relentless. It's, there's going to be so many obstacles in the way. So having somebody like yourself to help you out, it's massive. It makes all the difference.
You and I can relate that you put so much work into your physical abilities. And you put so much into the training that you do, the technique that you learn, the nutrition, the everything physical. You put so much into it that it's a crime to not put any time into the mental aspect of the game. That's like building a Ferrari and not putting gas in it, or not putting oil in it, or something that is just going to be like, hey, this is a beautiful car, but it can't perform. I was that same person. I put zero effort into my mental performance when I was in college, or really any time that I played sports. And I know exactly the results that I wound up getting, which is why I obviously do this, so that people don't make the same mistake or mistakes that I did, which was not caring about this side of the game. And it's so important. It's so important to leverage. But Shane, I don't think I can thank you enough for sharing your side of the story, sharing your experience, and really just being inspiring for other people who are wanting to get to the next level, whether that's the pros or college or whatever that looks like, and sharing your experience that allows people to understand that if they're going through challenges, one, they're not alone. Like, you're part of a championship team and championship caliber team. And you're a championship caliber athlete and everything that you do, but you're also human. You deal with challenges all the time. And for other athletes who are out there, you sharing that stuff is just, I mean, it's worth its weight in gold. So all I can tell you is I appreciate you, and I look forward to the journey ahead.
Yes, sir. It's just the beginning. Thank you for the time.